Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the News First team.
And I am Raza Irfan. Before we move on with our bulletin, let's take a look at your headlines for this evening.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
10 trade unions protest in Colombo, demanding an end to the looting of the employees' funds. University students protest against Minister Vijaydasa's proposal that curtails free education. Farmers in Ampara take to the streets, demanding a reasonable price for paddy. Control prices on eggs lifted with effect from tonight. President's all-party meeting on Wednesday. Opposition leader threatens to leave if meeting is another political game. Sri Lanka rupee, Asia's best to worst in 3 weeks, says Bloomberg.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
On to your stories in detail now. 10 trade unions protested opposite the Fort Railway Station in Colombo this afternoon.
The protesting trade union members stressed that the government should end the looting of the EPF and ETF under the guise of domestic restructuring.
Trade unions representing Sri Lanka's banking, ports, university, electricity, petroleum, water supply, trade, engineering and transportation sectors gathered opposite the Fort Railway Station in Colombo to protest on Tuesday afternoon. Sri Lanka police informed them that a court order had set certain restrictions on the protest. The protesters thereafter decided to continue with their protest.
The government has launched a program to loot from 117 funds including the EPF and ETF. They have requested expressions of interest via newspaper advertisements. These employees state that funds belong to them. However, the state is trying to loot the funds. This issue cannot be solved with court orders. We need discussions. If that process is not followed, we will continue with our struggle against this.
සේවකර මුදල් කොල්ල ගන්න හදනවා වාරණ වලින් අධිකරණ නියෝග වලින් නෙමෙයි ප්‍රශ්න බේරන්න ඕනේ සාකච්ඡා දෙන්න නැතුව තවදුරටත් කට්ටි බයිනවා නම් ඒක දෙරෙහිවත් මේ අර මුදල් රැක ගන්නත් මේ සටන අකණ්ඩව ඉස්සරහට ගෙනවා කියන පණිවිඩයක් දැසි අපි කියලා යන්න ආවේ අපි ආණ්ඩුවට මතක් කරනවා.
We defeated a similar attempt in 2011. We will once again bring the trade unions together to defeat the attempts that would pave the way for the looting of the pension funds.
Vehicular movement was disrupted as the protesters decided to move onto one lane on the road opposite the Fort Railway Station in Colombo. A heated exchange broke out when they attempted to proceed to the Finance Ministry. As police obstructed the path of the protesters, they engaged in the demonstration opposite the Fort Railway Station and dispersed.
Protests took place opposite several universities on Tuesday against the proposal put forward by Justice Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa.
University students in Sri Lanka protested against the proposal made by Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa to abolish the University Grants Commission, which is the state university regulatory body, and establish a new structure. The student union of the Naval Open University, engaging in a protest, stressed that the said proposal should be withdrawn immediately. Ranil Wickramasinghe and the Rajapaksa clan, which dances to the tunes of the IMF, is scheming to sell the education system in Sri Lanka. We are not prepared to do the same. Please withdraw this proposal immediately. The student union of the Rajarata University also staged a protest. The government is now trying to abolish the University Grants Commission, which used to be an independent organization. There are many welfare issues in state universities. As university students drop out, the government seems to show absolutely no sympathy towards them and is only focused on bringing these laws.
The collective of agriculture movements in the Ampara district took to the streets on Tuesday, demanding a reasonable price for their paddy harvest.
Farmers from Ampara in Sri Lanka's east visited the Sri Manikya Pillayar Kovil in Ampara to engage in a ritual to seek a reasonable price for their paddy harvest. After performing the ritual, the group marched to the Paddy Marketing Board office in Ampara and protested. The farmers then proceeded to enter the Paddy Marketing Board office in Ampara and engaged in a discussion with the regional manager.
දැන් ගොවියන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ නිසා ඔබතුමා මේ අම්පාර දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ වී ගන්න ප්‍රධාන අලෙවි මේ රජයේ නියෝජිතයා විදිහට අද මේ වෙන මේ ගොවියන්ට දෙන්න අදහස් මොකද ඔබතුමා? ආර්ථික මිලක් දීලා තියෙනවා නාන්න වලට රුපියල් 95. එතකොට සම්බවලට රුපියල් 100යි, සීඩ් සම්බව රුපියල් 110ට මිලදී ගන්නවා කියනවා රජයේ ආර්ථික මිලදී. ඒ අනුව මිලදී ගැනීම සඳහා දැන් කටයුතු කරමින් යනවා. නමුත් PLA මණ්ඩලයට අපිට සල්ලි හම්බෙලා තියෙන්නේ ගොවිපාලකාරාට මුදලින් කුටිකරණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව හරහා 100%ක පොලියට ගත්ත ණයකින් තමයි වී මිලදී ගන්න යන්නේ. එතන මිලියන 250යි අපිට දැන් තියෙන්නේ මේ වෙලාවේ. අපිට තියෙන ගැටලුව මේ වෙලාවේ අපිට උපදේශ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ බෝල නාඩු කියන විභාගයේ මිලදී ගැනීමට තමයි. මේ කන්නේ වගා කරන්න ඕනේ මෙන්න මේ කියන බෝල විය විතර අනිත් වී ගන්න නැහැ කියලා කන තින්දුවක් ගත්තා. මේ අම්පාර දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ වැඩිම නිෂ්පාදනයක් තියෙන්නේ මේ බෝල නාඩු නෙවෙයි රතු වී සහ දිග වී කියන පණිවිඩය අපි උඩට යවලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට ඒක ආයතනයේ මට්ටමේ මම හිතන්නේ කුස්කුමාර අමාත්‍යාංශ ලේකම්තුමාගෙන් ඉඳලා එතනින් එහාට යනකම් මේ පණිවිඩය ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. මේ වෙලාවේ මේ මැදිහත් වීම මොනවා හරි විදියකින් රජයේ විදියට කරයි. මම හිතන්නේ තාම මේ අවස්ථාව අපිට දැනුම් දීලා නැහැ කොයි විදියටද කරන්න කියලා. මේ වෙලාවේ ඔබතුමාලා කියන කවදා හරි
When will that happen? We have already reaped the harvest. When will the circular be issued? If paddy is not purchased now, there is no point. We abandoned 4 seasons because of Gota Bear's organic fertilizer policy. Are you continuing with the program to distance farmers from agriculture? As no proper solution was provided, the farmers vacated the premises. Several agricultural organizations continued their satyagraha for the second day, demanding a steadfast program to provide water to their crops in Amblipitia. During the satyagraha, the national organizer of the All Ceylon Agrarian Federation, Namal Karnaratna, examined the farmland in Kuttigala, Amblipitia.
The
media is told that the water from the Samanala River is necessary to produce electricity and that there is a shortage of water. They say that water cannot be released. There is no issue in releasing water for 25,000 acre-feet, and that would save the paddy lands. What we have here is paddy that is not touched by water. They would receive water again in 8 days. By that time, the crops will be lost.
The control price imposed on eggs will be removed from midnight.
The control price on eggs will be lifted with effect from midnight on Tuesday. The Consumer Affairs Authority told News First that cabinet approval was granted to lift the control price on eggs. A control price of 44 rupees was imposed for white eggs and a control price of 46 rupees was imposed for brown eggs. The Consumer Affairs Authority said that permission was granted to release imported eggs to the local market and it would pave the way for a competitive price to be determined in the local market.
Sri Lanka's political sphere is once again debating the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. All the while, people continue to protest, citing various issues that have been unsolved. Cabinet spokesperson and Minister Bandula Gunawardena noted that the President had stressed that a decision on the 13th Amendment to the Constitution would be reached only after discussing the matter with Parliament and the party leaders.
The 13th Amendment to the Constitution of Sri Lanka was an outcome of the India-Sri Lanka Peace Accord of July 1987, signed by then Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and then Sri Lankan President J.R. Jayawardena. It was an attempt to resolve Sri Lanka's ethnic conflict and led to the creation of provincial councils. It assured a power-sharing arrangements, and there continues to be a discord over the non-provisions of certain powers to the provincial councils. None of the provincial councils in Sri Lanka are in operation, and the powers of these provincial councils are exercised by the governors appointed by the President. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution was a matter discussed during President Ranil Wickremesinghe's visit to India last week. President Wickremesinghe said a decision can be reached on the powers if all parties are in agreement.
We hope that the Sri Lankan government will fulfill the aspirations of the Tamils. It will carry forward the process of reconstruction for equality, justice and peace. It will fulfill its commitment to implement the 13th Amendment and hold provincial council elections and the Tamil community of Sri Lanka to live with respect and dignity.
I also shared with him the comprehensive proposal I presented this week for furthering reconciliation, power sharing through devolution and the multiple elements of the Northern Development Plan. I have invited all party leaders in Parliament to work towards consensus and national unity on these measures. Thereafter, the government will place relevant legislation before Parliament.
Following his return to Sri Lanka, President Ranil Wickremesinghe called for an all-party meeting in Colombo to discuss national reconciliation. The meeting will take place on Wednesday at the President's office.
No proposal will be implemented by force unless there is a majority consent. As a first step, all political party leaders have been invited for a meeting. After the deliberations are made at this meeting and by the Parliament, a decision will be made. No premature decisions will be reached.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa said he would attend the meeting on behalf of the people, but would not fall prey to political schemes.
The 134 MPs who voted to elect this president share different views. We would like to convey to the government that it should first focus on internal unity before calling for meetings. We will attend this meeting on behalf of the people. However, if we feel these talks are of no use to the country, and if we feel that this is yet another political scheme, we will step away from these talks.
Tamil political parties in Sri Lanka are sharing different views of the all-party conference. Leader of the Tamil National Alliance, R. Sampanthan, told News First that he would attend the meeting on Wednesday. However, leader of the Tamil National People's Front, Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam, said he would boycott the meeting.
We do not
believe the 13th Amendment to the Constitution will solve the issues of the Tamil people. When they met the last time, the President said all powers can be provided, minus police powers. It was reported that the political groups rejected it. It is wrong to even attend the meeting. This is an attempt to portray to the world that the issue of the Tamil people will be solved, but it is just a lie. The 13th Amendment is a constitutional matter. India needs to understand whether this will be implemented even after 8 presidents have been elected. They would say 13 plus or 13 minus. Parliamentary approval is not necessary to implement this. There is no requirement to consult the legislature on police powers. You need to consult Parliament when you need to remove something or to add something new.
Port City.
We maintained our stance that the 13th Amendment must be implemented. However, we expressed our desire to further discuss it. When constitutional amendments were made in 2015 and 2019, we stressed on the land and police powers, adding that it needed to be done carefully. We will join the all-party meeting on the 26th of July as a Sri Lanka Freedom Party. This meeting should have been called for much earlier. It took a year for Ranil Wickremesinghe to call for an all-party meeting.
සර්වපාක්ෂික සමුළුවක් කැඳවන්න මේ කාරණය ගැන.
The National Freedom Front, a faction that broke away from the ruling Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, announced its position.
මේ රටේ මිනිස්සු කිසිසේත්ම ජනාධිපතිවරයාට ජනවරමක් දීලත් නැහැ.
The people of this country did not give the president the mandate, and neither are they ready to fully implement the 13th Amendment. The biggest issue the people have now is to live in this economic crisis. Thus, as a society, we should give priority to the economic crisis and how we can save this country from bankruptcy and bring normalcy back to the lives of the people. We do not believe that devolution will lead to reconciliation. Reconciliation comes from the hearts of the people.
සංඉන්දියාව ඇති කරන්න පුළුවන් මිනිසුන්ගේ හදවත්වල.
The Jatika Janabala Vegya has decided to boycott the all-party conference, noting that the president has failed to fulfill the promises made so far with regard to the national issue.
இன்றைக்கு இந்த ரணில் விக்ரமசிங்க மீண்டும்
He goes to India and says that the issue of the Tamil people will be solved. However, during the commemoration organized by the Socialist Youth Union on Black July, thugs were deployed. Tamil political parties need to think about this. If there is genuine intention to solve this, why can't people light lamps? And why were thugs employed? And why were thugs deployed? Ranil is simply playing a game with this all-party meeting.
இந்ததாக ரணில் விக்ரமசிங்க அவருடைய சித்து விளையாட்டுக்களை காணக்கூடியதாகவும் இருக்கின்றது.
Several agreements were signed during President Vikram Singha's official visit to India. It included an MOU for economic development of projects in the Trincomalee district. Among these are multiple development projects, including the Trincomalee Port and Oil Tank Complex. Proposals have been made regarding the expansion of the road between the Trincomalee and Colombo ports, the construction of an oil pipeline and a bridge connecting the two countries.
Democracy can be seen only if matters regarding the Trincomalee district are discussed with parliamentarians of the north and eastern provinces prior to the signing. These matters need to be discussed with the people of those areas as well. However, we can see that the president has selfishly taken those decisions.
This was the response of the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
During the government of good governance, an agreement has been reached with Surbana Jurong in Singapore to develop a major area of the Trincomalee district in separate zones. That agreement cited industrial zones, petroleum refinery zones and renewable energy zones. We need to identify those zones. Thereafter, if India has an interest in certain sectors, both sides can form a joint working plan and discuss what can be done together. We reached such an MOU. They are interested in renewable energy port development, petroleum among others. If we agree, we can work together on that.
වගේ කරුණු රාශියක් තමයි ඒ අවබෝධය උසුම් වල තියෙන්නේ. අපි එකඟ වුණොත් ඉදිරියට එකට වැඩ කරන්නට කටයුතු කළ යුතුයි කියලා.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs said that the next presidential candidate will be Ranil Wickremesinghe.
ඔබේ ස්ථාවරයේමද ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණත් ඉන්නේ. කියන්නේ ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ඉදිරි ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී අපේක්ෂකයෙක් විදිහට ඉදිරිපත්
කරනවා. මම දැක්කා එම ස්ථාවරයේ එහෙම නැහැ කියලා කිව්වා.
I saw some saying that it is not the stance. The party secretary said no decision was made. However, my view is that we need to select a person from those who are available. We need a person who can solve the economic crisis and with a political vision and good international relations. If there is someone else, it is good. But more than an individual, we need to take the program forward.
පුද්ගලයෙකුට වඩා ඉතින් මේ වෙලාවේ මේ වැඩපිළිවෙල ඉදිරියට ගෙන යාම සඳහා කවුද ඉන්නේ?
A tense situation arose during the District Development Committee meeting in Batiklo. Now, this meeting was attended by Minister Nazir Ahmed and Eastern Provincial Governor Sendil Thondaman.
The exchange was based on a transfer given to a zonal education director.
Now you are not answering anything. You have transferred somebody outside the district. Yes, sir. This is please right. You see, you have transferred him outside the district. Outside the law, outside the district. Outside it. I have work carefully. You do like this. Whatever questions they ask, you send it writing. That is your right. No, if you don't know the information, you send it writing. Put the facts and send it writing. Now, I want zonal director to answer. Zonal director. Yeah. Zonal. No. This must be recorded. Zonal director. Honorable Minister, 1 minute. Please. How many grade 1 schools?
News First with the people.
News First. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you. When a heart attack strikes, every minute makes the difference between life and death. With the right care and treatment at the hand of the most skilled surgeons and medical professionals. With the perfect environment for recovery. Durden's Heart Centre, dedicated to you.
Do you think if an election is held now, you all will have the same momentum and the traction at an election that is held in the coming few months? Don't you think things have changed now? The dynamics have changed.
I believe we can have the majority and form a government.
Why there was a trade deficit? Because we know our export income was drastically going down and the import level was very high by that time.
We as the political party is against government running any kind of business. Health and education has to be provided by the government free.
Saying that certain institutions have to be there with the government, whether it's loss making or profit making.
The loss-making state enterprises, they really have to be restructured.
There is no hard and fast rule about socialism and capitalism. That is intermingled. Like what we say always, the federalism and the unitary system of government. Both are intermingled.
Face the Nation, Wednesday nights at 9:30 on TV1.
There is a question of legitimacy, there is a question of whether or not they have the people's mandate.
Present government doesn't have such a mandate.
I think Sri Lankans have to get out of this kind of thinking because when they go to the polls for a presidential election, they always think that, if we put somebody X or Y, they put the country out of the mess, we'll be okay, and so forth and so on.
Because some policies are required to be quickly changed according to the changes.
By doing these emergency purchasings, because we are doing those things in a hurry, so this can affect badly to the quality of these drugs.
We have really an opportunity because Asia is growing, India is growing very, very speedily, India is growing, and we have an opportunity.
Newsline, Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. on TV1.
The 25th of July 2023 marks 2 years since the passing of Mr. R. Rajamahendran, the former chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group.
Many religious events were organized in memory of the late Mr. R. Rajamahendran, who rendered an immeasurable service to Sri Lanka across many sectors.
The Mahasangha was accompanied to the MTV MBC head office premises in Colombo from the Hunupitiya Gangarame temple. Religious observances followed by an almsgiving in memory of the late Mr. R. Rajamahendran took place at the premises. The senior management of the Capital Maharaja Group and staff were among those present.
බොහොම නිර්භීතව තීන්දුව తీරන ගැනීමේදී අපක්ෂපාතීව විශේෂයෙන්ම මහජනතාවගේ පැත්තේ ඉඳගෙන එතුමා ක්‍රියා කළා කටයුතු කළා.
He made fearless decisions and was unbiased in decision making. He worked from the people's side. He had to face many threats, insults and difficulties, yet he always carried himself without harming his identity and also protected his group. He never tried to become a character that attracted people. All he wanted was to ensure that his social services continued.
උත්සාහ කළේම නැහැ. හොඳ සමාජ ක්‍රියාකාරීවරයෙකු හැටියට එතුමාගේ භූමිකාව එතුමාට කරගෙන යාමයි අවශ්‍ය කරලා තිබුණේ.
A Dhamma sermon took place on Monday evening at the Depanama Broadcasting Station in memory of the late Mr. R. Rajamahendran. Venerable Ambulugala Sumangalathera from the Mahabodhi Agra Shravaka Temple in Maradana presided over the event. Religious events in memory of the late Mr. R. Rajamahendran took place at the Horana Home for the Elders, operated by the Raigam Korale Social Services Union. The event was organized by the staff at the Depanama Broadcasting Station. Religious events, a movie for the elders, and a tree planting event took place at the premises. A blood donation campaign and a program to donate organs took place at the Stein Studios in Ratmalana on Tuesday morning. Staff attached to Kevilton Electrical Products Private Limited of the Capital Maharaja Group and Stein Studios took part in the event. Students from Hindu College, Ratmalana were given an opportunity to spend the day at Stein Studios. The V-Force Let's Move Up program that discusses the principles and visions of the late Mr. R. Rajamahendran, who also founded the Gammadda movement, took place on Monday evening on the banks of the Bulpitigama River in Navagattegama, Puttlam. A clean drinking water project that was launched by Gammadda for the people of Gedaravava village in Puttlam was declared open on Tuesday. For years, families struggled to find clean drinking water, and the ever-present danger of chronic kidney disease was a fact of life. Next Manufacturing Private Limited financially supported the project, making the dream of the villagers a reality. Technical support for the project was provided by the Sri Lanka Navy.
මෙවන් වැඩසටහන් නිර්මාණය කිරීම පිළිබඳව ගම්මැද්ද නිර්මාතෘ ආර් රාජමහේන්ද්‍රන් මහත්මයාට එතුමාගේ දෙවන ගුණාස්ම
I would like to pay tribute to the late Mr. Rajamahendran, the founder of Gammadda, on his second-year memorial for paving the way to carry out these programs. Unlike others, he understood the suffering of the people and decided to launch a program like this.
පිළිබඳ සංකල්පය එතුමාගේ සිතේ
It was only 2 months ago when I came to do the initial inauguration of the project, and here we are 2 months later doing the official opening of the project itself. You know, whether you're here today as a more elderly person from the community, or whether you're a young person just starting out in life, I think being able to have access to clean drinking water, this really is, it feels like a life-changing moment for the members of the local community.
මම හිතන්නේ හොඳ නායකයෙක් හඳුන්වා දීමට හොඳම ආදර්ශය තමයි මෙතුමා.
I believe Mr. Rajamahendran is the best example for excellent leadership. We know that a good leader should have a sharp brain. If that person does not have a sharp brain, it is impossible to entrust them with the responsibility of taking leadership. Such a person would make wrong decisions, commit wrong actions, and this would ultimately lead not only to the destruction of that leader, but also the followers who brought him to that position. Even the institution that could also be a country would be led to destruction. As much as a leader should possess a sharp brain, the other extremely important factor is a good heart. Our people are very sensitive to a leader with a good heart. Our people cannot be fooled. Our people are very intelligent. We are coming from a great civilization. We got a culture from that great civilization. Through that culture, our people are able to judge if the person has a good heart or not. A leader should learn to strengthen both his brain and heart. Mr. Rajamahendran is one such person. Not only did he have a very sharp mind, he also had a very good heart.
බුද්ධියයි හදවතයි දෙකම ශක්තිමත් කරන්න ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕන. මෙතුමා එහෙම පුද්ගලයෙක්. මෙතුමා එහෙම නායකයෙක්. ඊ타ත්ම ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ බුද්ධියක් තිබ්බ විතරක් නෙමෙයි. එතුමාගේ හදවත ගොඩක් උණුසුම් වන හදවතක්. මිනිසුන්ට යොමු වුණ හදවතක්.
A religious event also took place in Navagattegama in memory of late Mr. R. Rajamahendran. A special Tevava ritual was performed for the sacred Agrashravaka relics of Sariputta and Mogallana placed at the Mahabodhi Agrashravaka temple in Maligakanda in memory of the late
Mr. R. Raja Mahendran. The event took place with the participation of the Capital Maharaja Group and Eslon Private Limited. In addition, A.F. Jones provided dry rations to orphanages in Colombo in memory of late Mr. R. Raja Mahendran. A special religious event in memory of the late Mr. R. Raja Mahendran took place at the Nelligala International Buddhist Center on Tuesday afternoon.
Verite research said that government interest payments weighed heaviest in 2022.
Verite Research said that according to the central bank's annual report for 2022, it revealed that interest payments have reached their highest level. This increase in interest payments suggests a significant debt burden on the government. The ratio of interest payments to total government revenue has surged from 35% in 2015 to a striking 78% in 2022.
Sri Lanka's interest cost to revenue reaches an all-time high at 78% of revenue for the end of 2022. This is a record high for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has never had this ratio since its independence. This is also the highest in the world. So when you look at World Bank data for over 200 countries, Sri Lanka has one of the worst or the highest interest to revenue ratios at 78%. And this has been the position that Sri Lanka was since 2020, which means that for every 1,000 rupees you pay as taxes, 780 rupees goes to make interest payments before even paying any other public service. When you look at other South Asian peers or other countries, the ratio is significantly lower. This means that Sri Lanka's tax revenue needs to improve significantly. And why is our revenue so low? Two major reasons: poor tax administration and irrational tax holidays. Sri Lanka needs to address these issues, because if it doesn't, that means that the fewer people paying taxes, which is the working class, the middle class, needs to pay a higher proportion in the future as well to compensate for the lower taxes that the tax holidays are giving.
Bloomberg reports that the Sri Lankan rupee went from Asia's best performing currency to the worst performing currency in just 3 weeks.
Bloomberg reported that the Sri Lankan rupee has turned into Asia's worst performing currency from being the best in the first half of the year, and is poised to extend losses amid headwinds from interest rate cuts and loosening of import controls. Demand for dollars is rising as the crisis-hit nation eases import controls on more goods such as tiles and medical supplies. Natix's essay in Hong Kong forecasts a further 8% depreciation in the rupee to about 355 per dollar by the end of the year. Sri Lanka cut its benchmark rate for the second consecutive meeting early this month amid fast disinflation, a move that's also weighed on the currency.
The reason for the currency depreciation, in my view, is mainly bringing the interest rates down. Of course, the imports restrictions have also been lifted, but the challenge is when the interest rates are basically, when you bring it down, the people again start consuming goods and services. Goods and services has an import component. So as a result, the demand for dollars increases, and we really do not have enough dollar income or dollar revenue to bridge this gap. And our main dollar revenue is from remittances, from tourism, from exports, including goods exports and service exports. So when you basically can't bridge that gap, the currency starts depreciating because the demand for dollars are increasing when you bring the interest rates down. There is also sometimes a misperception that the currency depreciation causes from the lifting of the import controls. It may have a minor impact, but if you look at the imports were controlled since pretty much COVID till last 2 weeks before, but still the currency crashed from 180 to 360 when there are very strict import controls.
Israeli police clashed with crowds of protesters at night after Parliament adopted a highly controversial law to limit the Supreme Court's powers.
Now, the measure limits some powers of the Supreme Court in Israel and will prevent the Supreme Court from overruling government actions it considers unreasonable.
Police in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv used water cannons to disperse protesters blocking highways. Critics say the hard-right government's reforms threaten Israeli democracy. After months of mass street protests over the judicial reform, Monday's Knesset parliament vote was an important victory for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Palestinians say the law passed by the Israeli parliament will make it easier for the Israeli government to pursue policies that serve its far-right agenda. Moreover, Israel's Histadrut Trade Union Confederation has threatened a general strike, and thousands of military reservists, including Air Force pilots, have vowed to not report for duty if the law is allowed to stand. Netanyahu has insisted the law is necessary for the government to, quote, carry out policy in line with the decision of the majority of the citizens of the country, unquote. But he said he was willing to resume talks with the opposition even until November to find an all-inclusive agreement. The planned reforms have triggered some of the biggest protests in Israel's history. On Monday, at least 22 people were arrested, according to the police. Opponents fear the changes could undermine the country's democratic system, tipping it into authoritarian territory. They worry that nationalist and ultra-orthodox religious parties allied to Netanyahu will be able to shape policy with unchecked power. But the government argues that the reforms are necessary to correct an imbalance in power, which has seen the courts increasingly intervene in political decisions. The Reasonableness Bill was approved by 64 votes to 0 after the opposition boycotted the final vote.
Be the first to know about the biggest stories as they break. Subscribe to News First English News Alerts. News First, your trusted English news channel.
Day 2 of the second test between Sri Lanka and Pakistan was delayed by rain today.
Pakistan resumed day 2 with an overnight score of 145 runs for the loss of 2 wickets. The covers were called in when the score was 178 runs for the loss of 2 wickets, with Pakistan leading by 12 runs. On Monday, Pakistan bowlers dismantled the Sri Lankan batting lineup for just 166 runs during the first session of day 1.
The Jaffna Premier League football tournament is currently heating up as competing teams entering the race for top 16, with 6 teams already qualifying for the round.
The Jaffna Premier League football tournament is being held with the aim of selecting the cream of Sri Lankan football players for the national football squad. 12 teams took part in the second round of matches today. 6 winning teams were qualified for the top 16 round. 3 more teams are to be selected tomorrow who will qualify for the top 16 round. The top 16 round will commence on the 27th of July. The quarterfinals of the tournament will be held on the 29th and 30th of July thereafter. The semi-finals will be held on the 1st and 2nd of August, with the finals being held on the 6th of August at the Durayappa Stadium in Jaffna. Shakti TV is the official media sponsor of this event.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. Good night.